The atmosphere was thick with tension, as if predicting an impending storm within our living room. "What do you mean she's moving in tomorrow?" I questioned Greg, my voice barely restraining shock and anger. "Unmoved," Greg retorted. "It's decided, Elise. My mom's coming to live with us. It's logical, especially now." Feeling trapped, I argued back. "How can you make such a decision alone? What about our plans?" Greg shot me that all-too-familiar look, the one that always unnerved me. "We'll convert your home office. It's the only logical solution," he stated with finality. "My office? Greg, that space is my haven." I protested. With a dismissive shrug, he replied, "Besides, I pay the rent here, $3,000 a month, which gives me a say in how we utilize the space." I was taken aback. This house, my family's legacy, now seemed foreign, dominated by Greg's financial grip. Whispering more to myself, I said, "But this is my family home." Greg's voice, void of the warmth it once had, cut through the air. "Family home or not, I'm the one covering the expenses. Clear out your stuff by tomorrow." Sleep eluded me that night, as the stark reality of our marriage, built on unstable grounds of financial superiority and silent acquiescence, hit me hard. The following morning, I awoke to the unsettling noise of my office being cleared. Marian, Greg's mother, arrived, her presence unwelcome in what used to be my haven. In the days that followed, her overbearing nature filled the air. She rearranged the kitchen, criticized my culinary skills, and subtly undermined me before my daughter, Mia. Walking on eggshells, I felt like an outsider in my own life. Greg's demeanor grew aloof. Our conversations turned brief, his nights longer. Our home, once resonant with laughter and dreams, now echoed with unspoken grudges and obligatory courtesy. One evening, I overheard Greg and Marian in conversation about finances. "Elise doesn't contribute much," Marian chided. "She should be thankful we let her stay." Rage surged through me. My family home, a trove of fond memories, reduced to a currency of power. Facing Greg the next morning, I insisted on discussing the rent. This was my family's home. I never agreed to pay rent, I stated firmly. Greg's response, a mix of condescension and aloofness, came quick. "Well, things change, Elise. I'm footing the bills, which means it's technically more my house than yours now." That was the breaking point. Realization dawned that our marriage, a fragile dance of love and concessions, had collapsed beneath the weight of control and disrespect. Shaking, I called my father, Nolan. "Dad, I need your help." "It's about Greg," I said, before hanging up and accepting that this was just the beginning. Determined not to let Greg and Marian dictate my life, I knew they underestimated me. I was my father's daughter, well-versed in holding my ground. Sitting in the now-empty room that was once my office, I reminisced about the early times with Greg, our differences complementing each other perfectly. Recalling our first date, how his laughter had echoed amidst the fall air, how he had looked at me as if I was his world, it pained me to compare that memory to the man who'd seized control of my family home. My phone buzzed, pulling me back from nostalgia. A text from my father read, "I'll handle it. Meet me at the shop tomorrow." Stepping into the familiar blend of oil and metal scents at Nolan's auto repair shop, my childhood haven filled with memories of hard work and unity, I found Dad engrossed in his work. "Dad," I called out. Emerging from under a car, he wiped his hands. "Elise, let's talk in the office." The office, a cozy room adored with trophies from car shows and framed family photos, was a time capsule of happier days. "I can't believe Greg is doing this," Dad said, eyes filled with anger and concern. "I know, Dad," I replied. "I think it's time for some payback." Nodding with resolve, Dad asked, "What do you have in mind?" I desired a lawful way to push Greg and Marian out of the house, making them truly comprehend the consequences of their actions. Sitting back in his chair thoughtfully, Dad suggested, "We can draft a rental agreement and increase the rent, making it too costly for them to stay." I felt both relieved and anxious. It was the first step towards taking back my life, yet it also felt like declaring war on Greg and Marin. Let's proceed, I agreed, surprising myself with a firmness in my voice. Over the following days, Dad and I diligently worked on creating the rental agreement. It was a careful and strategic blueprint intended to legally corner Greg and Marin. I imagined their reactions upon seeing the updated terms and felt a sense of satisfaction. Back at the house, Marin's true nature began to appear more prominently. She complained about everything from how I dressed Mia to the brand of coffee I chose. Her words were like needles, subtle yet piercing. One evening, I overheard her speaking on the phone. Yes, I've finally got the lease under my control. This house will be ours soon. Anger and disbelief surged through me. How could she be so unfeeling and manipulative? Yet, her words only strengthened my resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting Mia from such a toxic environment. The day came to present the rental agreement to Greg and Marin. Holding the document in my hand, I walked into the living room, my heart thumping. Greg, we need to discuss the house, I stated steadily. He looked up, surprised. What about it? I handed him the document. It's the new rental agreement. You need to read it. As Greg scanned the pages, a mix of confusion, disbelief, and finally anger crossed his face. This is absurd. The rent has been increased tenfold. Yes, I confirmed, meeting his gaze. It's the market rate for this property. If you can't afford it, you'll need to find somewhere else to live. Greg's face reddened with fury. You can't do this to us. I can, and I am, I replied, feeling more empowered than I had in years. This is my family home, Greg. You've forgotten that, but I haven't. The ensuing days after presenting the rental agreement were filled with silent battles and outright confrontations. Marion's true character, once veiled in polite intrusion, emerged fully. One evening, as I set the table for dinner, Marin entered, quickly surveying the room before sneering at the simple yet nutritious meal I'd prepared. This is what you call dinner? She scoffed. In my day, we knew how to properly provide for our families. I clenched my teeth, maintaining a polite smile. It's healthy and Mia likes it. Marin dismissed my efforts with a snort. Children lack understanding. It's our duty to teach them what's good. Clearly, you don't grasp that concept. Her words hurt, but I kept my composure, understanding that reacting only fueled Marin's disdain. As days passed, her presence became more overbearing, constantly criticizing my parenting, housekeeping, and even clothing choices, as if intentionally trying to provoke me. Coming home from a quick errand one afternoon, I found Mia in tears, with Marin calmly seated in the living room reading a magazine. What happened? I asked, rushing to console my daughter. Your child's just being fussy, as usual, Marin replied without a glance up. I lack patience for such nonsense. Holding Mia close, a protective anger surged through me. How could she be so uncaring towards her granddaughter? Later that week, needing to meet a potential client for my small business, I asked Marin, could you watch Mia for a couple of hours, please? Hoping for cooperation. With an annoyed expression, Marin responded, fine, but make it quick. I have plans later. Upon returning, I found Mia in distress again, and Marin was nowhere to be found. After calming Mia down, I confronted Marin. Where were you? I trusted you to watch her. Marin rolled her eyes. I had to step out for a bit. She was asleep anyway. What's the issue? The issue was Marin's selfishness, now impacting Mia, my most precious treasure. I realized Marin would never change. Her contempt for me had extended to Mia, and I couldn't tolerate it any longer. That night, I called my father, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and determination. Dad, it's getting worse. She's no longer just targeting me. She's neglecting Mia. Mia Nolan's decisive and quick reaction was indicative of the urgency of our situation. She insisted that the plan be accelerated, acknowledging the lack of safety for myself and Mia. Observing from a distance the next day, I noticed Greg and Marion huddled together in the living room, their whispers suggesting secretive plotting. With a firm tone, I inquired, what schemes are you two concocting now? Greg glanced up, his expression a facade of innocence. "Just discussing some financial matters. Nothing you need to concern yourself with," he replied. However, I was not easily fooled. The ongoing issue with the rental agreement had clearly perturbed them, and they were scrambling for solutions. This air of desperation would have been satisfying if it weren't replaced by a cold determination within me. They had underestimated my resolve, presuming I would succumb to their imposing tactics, but they were mistaken. I was gearing up for resistance, for Mia's sake and mine. The metaphorical battleground was set, and I intended to alter the dynamics completely. Living in the house became akin to navigating a precarious tightrope daily, as Marian's dominating presence cast a constant shadow of negativity. Her words were sharp, thorny pricks, testing my patience and inner strength. One evening, after putting Mia to bed, I overheard Marian's condescending dialogue with Greg in subdued tones. "Elise lacks the strength to be a mother. She's too gentle, too vacillating. You need someone capable of managing a household effectively." Immobile with shock, I listened as Greg weakly concurred, a betrayal piercing more painfully than Marian's verbal barbs. Confronting Greg the following day, I demanded, "Do you truly think I'm an inadequate mother?" My voice quivered with emotional strain. Greg evaded my eyes. "It's not just about parenting, Elise. It's about competence and responsibility." The word inadequate reverberated through my thoughts, a harsh critique of my familial role. Emboldened by her manipulations, Marian began to exert even more control, rearranging furniture to her taste, discarding items she deemed superfluous, and effectively monopolizing the kitchen, relegating me to the peripheries of my own residence. Returning home one day, I was greeted by Mia's inconsolable tears, while Marian remained indifferent in the kitchen. "Why aren't you attending to her?" I demanded, my heart pounding with anxiety. Marian responded with a dismissive shrug, cold detachment in her demeanor. "She needs to learn self-soothing. It's part of growing up." That night, driven by a mixture of anger and helplessness, I reached out to my father. "I can't endure this any longer, Dad. Greg and Marian are destroying all I cherish. I need a way out." Nolan's reply was immediate and firm. "You and Mia can come stay with me. We'll find a solution." Although leaving felt like conceding, remaining meant more suffering for Mia and me. My decision solidified the next morning when I discovered my personal belongings boxed and stashed in the garage, deemed clutter by Marian. This violation was the final break. With essential items packed, I bid farewell to a house that had once brimmed with love and warmth. Leaving signified liberation from oppression, stepping into uncertainty. Staying with my father brought an elusive peace I hadn't experienced for months. Mia's laughter revitalized my spirit. Yet the battle for justice was ongoing. Meeting with my lawyer, I was resolute. I seek full custody of Mia and wish to reclaim the house. Understanding the situation's gravity, my lawyer assured, "We will build a strong case for you, Elise. You have rights." As the legal proceedings commenced, the realization struck that this fight was not merely about a divorce. It symbolized a struggle for my identity, Mia's future, and justice against Greg and Marian's tyranny. Greg reacted to the divorce papers with disbelief and wrath. "You're making a mistake, Elise. You can't win this." But my resolve was steadfast. After enduring so much, it was time to take back my life and shield Mia from the toxic environment cultivated by Greg and Marian. I was no longer a passive observer, but a determined mother ready to reclaim control. The divorce proceedings unfolded as a cold, strategic dance of legal maneuvers and emotional confrontations. Greg's initial shock at my departure morphed into a bitter resolve to retaliate. In the lawyer's office, I scanned the documents with disbelief. "He's contesting Mia's custody." The lawyer nodded gravely. "He's also challenging your claim to the house, but we have a solid case." As the legal battle intensified, my determination only grew stronger. This was not merely about ending a failed marriage any longer. It became a stand against the injustice and manipulation I had faced. Amidst this conflict, my father and I solidified our strategy for the rental agreement. a tactical measure designed to legally force Greg and Marion to leave my family home. One afternoon, when I arrived at the house to present the revised rental terms, Greg and Marion awaited me, their faces a mixture of defiance and bewilderment. I handed Greg the document and observed his expression as he perused it. Disbelief filled his widened eyes. "This is absurd. You're raising the rent to an outrageous level," Greg exclaimed. "Yes, Greg," I replied calmly. "That's the market rate for a property of this size in this area." Marion interrupted, her voice edged with panic. "You can't do this to us, Elise. This is our home." "No, Marion," I responded, maintaining my stance. "This is my family home. You've both made it clear that I'm unwelcome here. So, if you wish to remain, these are the new terms." Greg slammed the document on the table, his anger palpable. "We'll contest this. You won't succeed," he threatened. Yet beneath his words, I sensed his fear, the dawning realization that they were losing control. As I departed from the house, a bittersweet feeling engulfed me. I had taken a vital step in reclaiming my home, but the sight of Mia's forgotten toys in the living room lingered as a reminder of the personal cost of this dispute. The ensuing days passed in a whirlwind of legal appointments and emotional turmoil. I held on to Mia, her innocence and love serving as my anchors amid the storm. During one hearing, Greg's true nature surfaced. "Elise is unstable, Your Honor," he asserted. "She is unfit to be Mia's sole custodian." My heart pounded as my attorney countered his unfounded claims with evidence of my stable income and loving relationship with Mia. At a subsequent meeting, Greg's lawyer proposed a settlement. Greg was prepared to relinquish his claim on the house in exchange for joint custody and reduced rent. I hesitated, torn between the wish to end the conflict and the need to shield Mia from Greg and Marion's detrimental influence. But then I recalled Marion's tears and Greg's betrayal. This was no longer simply about winning a legal conflict, it was about seeking justice and setting a precedent for my daughter. "I refuse," I declared firmly. "I will not compromise on Mia's well-being or my family home." The decision to persist in the struggle was challenging but vital. I was no longer the woman who tolerated disrespect and manipulation. I was fighting for my rights, my daughter's future, and the dignity Greg and Marion attempted to strip from me. The final confrontation day loomed like an impending storm on the horizon. Armed with legal documentation, I stood at the doorstep of what was once my sanctuary, now a battleground. Greg opened the door, his face a mask of defiance, while Marion hovered behind him, anxiety clear in her eyes. "What do you want, Elise?" Greg inquired, his tone icy. "I'm here to finalize the arrangements," I said, handing him the updated rental agreement. As he read it, his expression shifted from confidence to disbelief. "This is ridiculous. You're demanding a rent that's unreasonably high," he shouted. "It's the market rate for a property of this size in this location," I replied, my voice unwavering. "If you cannot afford it, you must vacate." Marion stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You can't do this to us. We have nowhere else to go." "That decision was made when you chose to push me out of my own home," I replied, meeting her gaze. Greg slammed the document on the table. "We'll see what the court determines. You're not getting away with trying to evict us from our home," he fumed. "This ceased being your home when you elected to dismiss my rights and my feelings," I retorted. The air was taut with tension. The familiar living room now felt foreign, filled with bitterness and betrayal. As I turned to leave, Marion's voice halted me. "Elise, please, we can negotiate. There must be a way to resolve this." I paused, contemplating her words. Then, with a resolve that surprised even myself, I said, "There is nothing left to negotiate. You made your choice when you sided with Greg against me." Leaving the echoes of a life that had faded behind, I stepped out of the house with Mia. The following days were filled with a blend of relief and uncertainty. The legal battle was arduous, but my determination remained unshaken. I was fighting for my dignity, for my daughter, and for the justice that had been denied to me for so long. In the end, the court's decision was in my favor. Greg and Marion were given 30 days to leave the premises. This news struck them like a tidal wave. stripping away the last remnants of their control and arrogance. Observing from afar as they packed up their belongings, I witnessed the collapse of their dreams and ambitions. Their eyes revealed a new awareness, a recognition that their schemes had ultimately failed. As I re-entered my family home, now free of their presence, a profound sense of peace enveloped me. This was not merely the peace of victory, it was the peace of justice finally being served. Walking through the rooms, reclaiming the spaces that were once mine and Mia's, I found solace in the walls that had borne witness to so much pain, now serving as silent guardians to our new beginning. Though I was aware that the path ahead would be challenging with wounds to heal and memories to reconcile, for the first time in years, I felt hopeful. I had defied the odds, confronted Greg and Marin's tyranny, and emerged stronger. This was more than a legal victory, it was the reclamation of my life, proving a strength I hadn't realized I possessed. As the dust settled and legal conflicts concluded, the previously tumultuous house transformed into a serene haven. Standing in the vacant living room, memories of past events resonated in the silence. Mia's laughter, resonating from a corner, became a balm to my weary heart, revealing that this struggle, though fraught with pain, was necessary. This was not just a fight for a house, it was a battle for our future and peace. The day Greg and Marin departed, I saw realization flicker in their eyes, an understanding of the consequences of their actions. Marin's face showed loss and regret, while Greg, defeated, avoided meeting my gaze. In the weeks following, I focused on rebuilding my life, finding solace in my small business's routine and the support of loyal customers. Mia flourished in the newfound stability, her resilience testament to our bond's strength. One evening as I closed the shop, Greg appeared, looking different, a certain humility in his eyes replacing previous arrogance. "Elise," he began awkwardly, "I wanted to apologize for everything." Surprised and skeptical, I asked, "Why now, Greg?" With a weary sigh, he confessed, "Losing the house, the divorce, it made me realize how wrong I was, how much I lost because of my pride and my mother's influence." I considered his words, years of pain flashing through my mind. "Your apology doesn't change the past, Greg, but for Mia's sake, I accept it." Greg nodded, a look of relief on his face. "Thank you, Elise." "I'm truly sorry," he added before walking away. His apology didn't erase our painful history, but it offered closure to the turmoil we had endured. In the months that followed, I transformed the house into a welcoming home once more. We repainted walls, refurnished rooms, and created new memories. It became a sanctuary for Mia and myself, a place for healing and growth. Often, I sat on the porch, watching Mia play in the yard, contemplating our journey. The challenges were immense, but revealed a strength within me I hadn't known. I had stood against injustice, fought for my rights, and reclaimed my life from those who sought to dominate it. In the end, this was more than a tale of revenge. It was a narrative of empowerment, rising above trials and tribulations to build a better future for my daughter and me. The house, once a battleground of conflict and manipulation, became a haven of peace and hope, reminding me that sometimes the hardest battles yield the most rewarding victories. As the sun set, shedding a warm glow over the yard, I held Mia close, grateful for the journey that had led us here. We had overcome, triumphed, and finally arrived home.